What do you work on and why did you choose this area?
Well, I'm a translational scientist, which means I work at the interface of science and medicine, trying to develop new gene therapy based treatments for lung diseases such as cystic fibrosis. I got interested in CF when I did my PhD in Lapchi Choi's lab in Toronto, in Canada, where the cystic fibrosis gene was cloned. The cloning of the gene was a big achievement and a major landmark, and I was very excited at the time about using this gene to develop new therapies for patients.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
Well, I really, really enjoy the variety of doing research, teaching, and certain administrative roles, and the flexibility. In general, I can decide day to day and almost hour by hour what I would like to prioritize and work on. And I also like the interaction with people at all different levels in my role.
What does your typical working day look like?
Well, I don't think there is such a thing as a typical working day. I generally get up around 5:30 and cycle to work, which is my daily exercise. I try to be at my desk generally for 8, which means that I have able to catch up and have some time before most others get in. I will generally first scan emails and then start whatever is scheduled for the day, such as meetings, teaching, admin, reading, writing papers or grants. Lunch is most often a quick bite at a desk or working lunch in meetings, and I try to leave between 6 and 7, but that's not always possible.
What are your career ambitions?
Well, I wanted to become a professor at Imperial College, which I worked hard for and achieved about 2 years ago. My ambitions now are to further enhance my international reputation as a gene therapist and my standing in college. I'm also a program director for a new MSc, and making the course successful is close to my heart.
Who has been the biggest inspiration in your career?
Well, I have to say I've admired many people, but one of the people who stands out is Francis Collins. Francis Collins was initially involved in cloning of the cystic fibrosis gene. He then became the father of the Human Genome Project and the major brain behind this work, and he's now director of the National Institute for Health in the US, and he's one of the most inspirational speakers I've ever met.
If you had not chosen this career path, what would you be doing now instead?
Without a doubt, I would be a farmer growing organic vegetables.
How would you sum up Athena SWAN in a few words?
I think Athena SWAN for me is about raising awareness, not only about women in science, but general areas of science and research and employment at universities that needs to be looked at and potentially changed.
What do you think is the best thing about Athena SWAN?
I think for me it's about the new initiatives for men and women that came out of Athena initiatives. For example, focus groups that are now routinely happening and may actually have a real impact on our day-to-day life and interaction.
What one single thing would make your job easier or better?
More hours in the day.
What changes for women in science have you observed during the course of your career?
Well, I think in the Faculty of Medicine, women have always very well been represented, but I think in other areas of science, certainly the number of female academics, senior female academics, has increased during the course of my career, and generally the visibility of women has increased in all sorts of areas of research and science.
In your view, what are the biggest challenges facing female scientists or clinicians today?
I think it's the combination of career ambitions, long working hours, and having a family. And unfortunately, I can't see this easily changing in the next, in the foreseeable future. I do think it's not just a female specific problem though, but affects men as well, although it's probably fair to say that in general it's still females who take the major burden of childcare on their shoulders.
What has been the biggest challenge in your career and how did you overcome it?
For certain, the biggest challenge was to come to London as a postdoc and raising a family on a postdoc salary, considering the high living expenses in London.
And how did you overcome that?
Well, overdrafts and credit cards, I would say.
Do you feel that being a woman has had an impact on your academic progression and career in science? If so, how?
I have to say, I feel I've been very lucky and have never had the feeling that being a woman had a negative impact on my career. What I would say, though, is that possibly being female leads to taking on more teaching and welfare responsibilities than some male colleagues might.
What piece of advice would you offer to an early career researcher wanting to work in science?
Well, I would advise that you should enjoy research even if your experiments disprove your hypothesis, which will be the case in more than 90% of experiments you do. I also think you have to be patient. Rome was not built in a day, and to build a successful career in science will take time. Networking is very important, and being aware of promotion criteria and boxes that you need to tick to get to the next level is very important.
How has your research career impacted on your personal life and vice versa?
Well, I think moving around in early stages of my career has affected my personal life. For example, by the time my daughter was 8, she had already lived in 3 countries, which obviously had an impact on her growing up. What has been very positive in my career is the flexibility of working at home 1 day a week if required, which I still routinely do, and really makes a big impact on my output of work and my enjoyment of work.
If you were given £1 million, what would you spend it on?
I'm not sure. I think I might invest in a sailing boat to sail around the world when I retire, and in a horse, because sailing and horse riding are 2 big hobbies of mine.
If you could have one superpower for a day, what would it be and what would you do?
Well, I would like to see in the future to have me secure funding for me and my team for the next 15 years, because grant writing is such a big burden on the day-to-day life of a scientist in the current funding climate.